France aims to spend more than $100 billion over the next 2 years to pull its economy out of its worst slump since the Second World War. President Emmanuel Macron's government hopes its recovery plan will create jobs and support businesses, so the eurozone's second biggest economy can return to pre-pandemic levels by 2022. It comes as France reported 7,000 new COVID-19 cases, its highest single-day tally since the outbreak began. Called France Relaunch, the stimulus package is worth $118 billion, or about 4% of the country's GDP. France plans to spend proportionally more public cash than any other big European economy. The funds will be allocated to businesses crippled by the lockdown measures, the creation of 160,000 jobs by next year, and the implementation of climate-friendly policies. The recession is one of the deepest in the economic bloc. France's GDP shrank nearly 14% in the second quarter and is expected to contract 11% for the year.
We all know that the weeks to come will be the most difficult of the crisis. We will now see what the consequences will be on employment. It is now that we will see the consequences on bankruptcies. We have to carry on with measures in place. That's what we are doing with part-time unemployment, with hotels, cafes, restaurants, the cultural sector, the events sector. But we must also show the French what France could be after the crisis and tell them one simple thing: we will succeed. And I am convinced that France will come out stronger from the crisis.
Well, for more on this, Jacques Reland joins us now from the northern port city of Saint-Malo in France. He's a senior research fellow at the Global Policy Institute. Welcome back to the program, Jacques. $118 billion to relaunch France, as it's been called. How effective are the measures that's been announced?
We will see in the future. Future will tell. But it seems that they are very good measures, which shows that now that the government has been dealing with health concerns, now the main concern is to protect the economy, to prevent it from collapsing, and use that opportunity in order to relaunch, as they use the word, to prepare for the future. It's not just a short-term plan. Already, the French government has already spent over 400 billion euros in order to smoothen the impact of the crisis with furlough schemes such as partial unemployment and helps loans to businesses, etc. So that was in order to prevent the French demand from collapsing and to prevent bankruptcies of firms. But this time the idea is more to prepare for the future, and the measures in this involved in the plan announced today are more short to medium to long term. The aim is that to actually make France a very eco-friendly, ecologically friendly country, dynamic country, involving new technologies by 2030.
So how successful has President Emmanuel Macron been in terms of mitigating the economic impact of the outbreak so far? Has he done a good job?
Up to now, yeah, everyone agrees that the government is probably the government which has spent the most in order to alleviate the consequences of the crisis. Household incomes has been preserved, businesses have been given loans, and there's been loads of payroll tax postponements. So lots of measures have been to make sure that the industrial and business and economic fabric of France will not collapse, to keep businesses going and to keep income of people going. And we've seen as a result, for example, the French have been able to save an awful lot of money. The savings in France are now over 20% of the income, which is one of the highest rates in the world. So now the idea is to make people spend that money, but at the same time, more importantly, is to prepare France for future challenges. And we've seen that in the plan, there's three big directions, three big lines. The first one is to there's 100 billion divided in about 3 more or less equal shares. 1/3 will go to make the French economy greener. It's called the economic transition, to promote greener transport, greener energy, especially with investment in hydrogen. And one of big chunk will also be a big job creation schemes is the renovation of buildings, private and public, in order to improve their insulation. That should create thousands of jobs because it's very labor intensive thing. The other thing is to preserve the industrial economic fabric of France and to promote the business competitiveness of France. So this time we are more in line. The measures are accentuating the supply side measures which have been taken by Macron earlier. It involves not raising taxes, but on the opposite, giving tax cuts to businesses and there will be also investment in new technologies, and the government will help firms, small and medium firms, to increase their capital. And the last one is the idea of social and territorial cohesion. The big concern here is youth unemployment, and there's measures aimed at encouraging businesses to hire young workers. On the whole, this plan has been welcomed by both sides, the left and the right. The left
I'm so sorry, Mr. Reland. I'll have to interrupt you there because we're running out of time. But thank you again for analysing this new stimulus plan for us.